welcome to the channel. I'm hoping to start a new series called Community Troubleshooting, where I take the problems that you're running into in the Discord or YouTube comments or other communities I'm part of, try to figure out how things are broken, why they're broken, and how we can go about fixing them. I'm going to walk you through like a lot of my processes and where I use print commands and things along those lines to try to figure out exactly what's happening, which function we're in, and as we step through that type of code. Today I want to address the mouse interactions and the different layers and canvases and some gotchas I have. I don't have this specific example today, but if people come across some other ones they want to share, I'll gladly, especially if you're willing to share your code, I will work through your code on video, on stream, and try to resolve the problems and show you, exactly how I go about troubleshooting this and the different tools I use. So with that said, let's get started, and I'm going to jump over here into our copy of Godot, and you can see here I've got a real simple scene. I've got just a whoops, didn't mean to do that. Got a real simple scene here, and it's just a menu button and a play button, and I've broken these out into menu buttons, gameplay buttons, and then I have a player hub which you can see has the score and stuff on here. So if I run this, what you're going to see is we have this play button we can click on, and it does something. Say this was play music or pass turn or whatever it is in your game. Then we have a show menu, and when this menu's up, you can click on all these buttons, but we can't click on the play button, which if this was a menu, this is probably the desired outcome that you want here. Then we can just go back to hide menu, and you can see everything becomes useful again. Pretty straightforward. That one's fairly easy. These are all just set up as gameplay buttons as a control node. And you can see here we've got the mouse filter as stop, so it means it's going to interact with what's on this layer and not pass it down to the next layer down. Same with menu buttons. So the same thing. Right now, by default, they're hidden, but these are also on a filter stop layer. So when it's on this menu layer, it's going to make sure that it's only interacting with this layer and it's not letting anything else below it go. And that you can see here is defined by this orange outline. So anything underneath this orange outline is going to be blocked with this filter stop. So I won't be able to interact with the gameplay buttons at all as long as this filter stop is in place. But if I change this filter stop to ignore, and then we run the game again, you'll see that even when the menu is up, we can click on all these, but look, this is also able to be interacted with. Probably don't want this in the menu, because usually when your menu comes up, you want the game to pause and not be interactable, especially if you have something like behind these buttons, an inventory screen or something like that, especially if it's like a discard item and it's behind one of these menu buttons. You don't want the player to accidentally get rid of it. So what we can go back here and do is I just want to show you a couple of the other like gotchas and stuff like that. So if we go back to stop on this so everything works the way we want, we can have player HUD. And right now this is nice and clear. We don't have anything that's blocking anything. But if this player HUD was not set to ignore, we just had it back to stop, and we ran this, we won't be able to interact with any of these buttons. None of these buttons are going to work. Gameplay is not going to work. Hide, show, none of this stuff is going to work. Because what's happening is this entire control is trying to eat or absorb the mouse. So we want to make sure that we have this back to ignore, so that it's ignoring anything on this layer and just showing, in this case, like the score. Another good example of this is I have this great thing. It's called, don't press this. And if we go here and rerun this, even though we can still interact with all this stuff, we can hide the menu, show the menu, but even when we're in the gameplay, we can't push this. It's failing to allow us to interact with it. And that is simply because, again, this control node is an orange box. Anything that's underneath this is not going to allow us to interact with it. So, I mean, there could be invisible thing. We could put it over here and run the same thing again, and you'll see, when we go into gameplay mode, we can do this, but when we're in the menu, oh, we can't interact with the menu anymore. And There's a couple other things that could happen. Let's move that back to where it was. And we'll shut that off so that we can interact with that again. There's also a hierarchy in these. So if I move these buttons and say I put this one, let's put it right here, and we run this, what's going to be is it's only going to allow you to interact with what's in front. And our gut instinct says, oh, we just got to go down here and say we want button 2 to be in front. So then we come down here to our ordering, we go Z index, oh, let's put it one higher. So now look, we see button 2 on front, but button 3 is behind. But if we go back here and we try to interact, you can see that all it affects is the drawing layer. It doesn't actually affect the interactive layer. So the interaction is still defined by those shapes. So button 3 is going to be the one that gets clicked on when I click right here, not button 2. So this, in some versions of Godot, usually it comes up with a warning saying, hey, adjusting the Z index is only going to affect the draw. It's not going to actually affect your interactivity layer. So we can just go ahead and put this back. And then let's undo our moves, put this all back here. It can get real confusing. The biggest thing about this type of stuff is there's a lot of things that are hidden. I call them hidden control nodes without realizing it. So things like, a control node is control. It makes sense. Texture button, a label. Labels are control nodes. Hence why when I unhide this and we run it, we can't press it. It doesn't work because it's technically a control node. And if we look at the label, you can actually see in the mouse, we have it's set for stop. Ignore is our normal, which should be what it is for a label. It makes sense. But if we set it to stop, like I have here, then we are unable to interact past it. So if we look here in the new node and we come up here to control, let me just close out of all that. So if you look here under control, all this stuff, all these color recs, the texture recs, menu bars, patch 9, all this stuff, these are all control, and all of these can eat your mouse input. So you got to be very careful because each of these will have their own mouse filter setting. And if you don't set that correctly, then you're going to have problem again where you can't interact with things you want to interact with. Even if you hide the menu and it should be on gameplay, but this still exists. So like I said, this is hopefully a new series that I want to do. I want to troubleshoot the stuff that you guys run into and try to make a video out of it, explain my thought process, how I go through all this. And every case is going to be unique. Every case is going to be specific to your code, your game, and how it's interacting. And feel free, leave me a comment, look me up in Discord, share with me, and I will try to work through it with you, and hopefully we can figure this out. I know a couple of you are running into this problem, and hopefully this kind of gives you a little bit more insight of what possibly is happening. And if we still have more problems with it, let's work on it together. And sounds like we should have a fun time. Thanks.